Welcome to Pattern and Craft. I'm Courtney, and in today's video I wanted to show you how to make these cute little crochet hexagons. It's similar to making a square, but obviously it's a hexagon, and it can be used to make any kind of blanket, bag, pillow cover, whatever you like. So I'm just going to show you how to make the hexagon itself as well as how to join it. I'm using a join as you go technique that's really easy to do and so much faster than sewing them together. It has a floral motif in the center and it is completed in just 4 rounds. For materials, we have the Made with Love, the cottony one by Lion Brand in lychee white. I'm using this because it's the same yarn I used to make a pillow cover for a throw pillow that I already made a video on. And I would like to make a companion pillow to it, but I wanted a different pattern, so I'm just using the same color and type of yarn so that they match while being a different pattern, because I like to keep it interesting and I get bored doing the same thing. So I'll be using that. It's a category 4 worsted weight, or maybe it's Aran weight. I'd call it a little heavier than worsted weight yarn. It's a cotton acrylic. It's very soft, but it's not very drapey. So I wouldn't use it for a blanket necessarily, but it's perfect for a pillow cover like I will be making. I won't be showing you how to do that in this video. I'll just be showing you how to make the hexagons and how to join them. In a future video, when I have enough of the hexagons, I'll show you how I construct the pillow cover itself. All right, and also I'll be using a 5.5 millimeter crochet hook. This is a Clover Amour. It's one of my favorite crochet hooks. The yarn actually calls for a 5 millimeter hook on the label. This is just a suggestion though, and I tend to be a tight crocheter, so I go up a half a hook size in this case so that my crocheting isn't too tight. All right, let's get started with the tutorial. So one thing I find helpful is looking at the stitch chart for a pattern. A lot of patterns don't include this, but I find it really helpful. I'm a visual person, so it helps me to see how the stitches go together and the construction of whatever I'm making. This is the complete pattern chart for this hexagon, but I'll also show with each step the round that we're working on. All right, to get started, I'm going to make a magic ring to start. You can use any starting method that you prefer, but I prefer a magic ring because I have a little more control over the size of the hole in the center of my hexagon, and it's adjustable. I like that. So I'm going to wrap my string. The tail is towards me. I've wrapped it around these 2 fingers. I'm holding the tail with these fingers and I'm holding the working yarn with my thumb. I go under the top right of the X, over the top left of the X, pull that left side up and through and twist, and then yarn over. And then I reposition, holding everything with my index finger so it doesn't come apart, and then I pull that loop through the loop on the hook. And now I have a chain 1, and I'm going to go ahead and make a second chain. So this starts with a chain 2, which represents a half double crochet. And then now I need to make 11 more half double crochets into my ring. I'm going to tighten my ring a little bit here. I'm going to untwist that tail and pull it a little tighter so it's easier to work with. Now I've already yarned over on my, so I have the loop on my hook and a yarn over. I'm going to insert my hook into the ring and pull up a loop, and then yarn over again so that I have 4 loops on my hook. Now I'm going to pull that first loop through the other 3. That is a half double crochet. Now I need to make 10 more because this counts as 1, the starting chain 2 counts as 1, and I need 12 total. So I'm going to make 12 total half double crochets into my magic ring. All right, that's the 12th half double crochet. And now I'm ready to close my ring. So to close the ring, this is the tail you pull on to tighten it. However, it's a little better if you start with the loop and pull that tight first, just so that you don't have any extra caught string inside these stitches. Then go ahead and pull that tail to close the ring. There we go. And then I'm just going to slip stitch to close because I have my chain 2 and then I have 11 half double crochets. I'm going to slip stitch between that first chain right there. So I'm going to put my hook there, yarn over, pull that loop through, and then pull it through the loop on the hook. That is a slip stitch, and that closes our round. Now I'm going to make a chain 2. Now we're ready to do the second round. I've chained 2, and that is the first half of the first stitch that I need to make. My first stitch is a double crochet 2 together. This chain 2 represents the first partial double crochet stitch. Now I'm going to yarn over and then back into the same spot right here. I'm going to insert my hook, pull up a loop, yarn over. I have 4 loops on my hook. I'm going to pull the first loop through the other 2. Now I basically have 2 partially completed double crochets, both on my hook. I'm going to yarn over and pull that loop through both. That creates 2 double crochets together. Now I'm going to chain 1, which I'm going to do between each of these double crochet 2 together stitches. I'm going to do a chain 1. Now into the next stitch over, which is this stitch, I'm going to do the same thing. I've yarned over, pull up a loop. It can be a little tight right here just because of the nature of the 12 stitches going into the ring. So I pull up a loop, I yarn over, again I have 4 loops on my hook. I'm going to pull the first loop through 2 and then just leave it at that. Normally for a double crochet you would yarn over and pull through these 2 loops, but I'm not going to do that yet. I'm going to yarn over and create another partial stitch in the same stitch and then pull through 2. Now I have the loop on my hook and then the 2 partial stitches. Yarn over, pull through all 3. Chain 1 and do it again. Into the very next stitch over. So we're going to be making this 2 together double crochet into every stitch around from the previous round. So just 2 together double crochet into each stitch. So partial stitch, join them, chain 1. That's how I like to think about it when I'm making 2 together stitches or any kind of multiple stitch like this that are put together. So partial stitch, join them, chain 1, into the next stitch, make my partial double crochet. 1 second, I need some more yarn. And then make another partial double crochet. And then yarn over, pull that loop through all 3 loops on the hook, chain 1. Don't forget the chain 1. You're making a chain 1 between each of these 2 together double crochets so that you have a little chain space to work into in the next round. So into the next stitch, we're using both loops, by the way, of each half double crochet from the previous round. And then we're making 2 partial double crochet stitches into them, then connecting them, then chain 1. So just keep going all the way around And you'll end up with 12 of these little petal shapes that are created by the 2 stitches together, because we're working one of these petals into each of the stitches all around, and we had 12 stitches in the previous round, so we will have 12 petals in this round. Okay, here we are with the last petal. We're doing a double crochet 2 together in that last stitch of the previous round, and then chain 1. All right, so we have our all 12 petals around on the second round of this hexagon, and it won't look like a hexagon yet, it will look like a circle. So now we're going to have to slip stitch, and it's a little confusing. Do I slip stitch here? Do I slip stitch here? You want to slip stitch here. It's like the top stitch of the first chain that you made. That's where we put our slip stitch. So we pull up a loop and then pull that loop through the loop on our hook. Now I want to slip stitch into the chain space here. This chain space between, there's a chain space of a chain 1 between all of these little petals, and we want to slip stitch from the middle of this petal over to the chain space. So just make one more slip stitch into the chain space. All right, that's the end of round 2. Now we need to make round 3. Round 3 is another circular round, and it will be 3 extended double crochets together, and then those are going to be separated by a chain 3. So it's the same thing all around into each of these chain spaces. I'm going to do a chain 2, and I'm going to yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over again. Now instead of like when we're making a partial double crochet stitch, usually you would pull this loop through these 2. We're just going to pull this loop through the first one. Now we're going to yarn over again and pull through 2. This gives us a partial extended double crochet stitch instead of a partial double crochet. So we're going to make one more, because this is going to be a 3 together. This was 2 together in the previous round. This round we're doing 3 together. So yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 1, yarn over, pull through 2. Now I have 3 partial stitches on my hook. I have the first one that's made from a chain and the other 2. Now I'm going to yarn over, pull through all 3, and make 1, 2, 3 chains. The 3 chains will be the chain spaces that we'll be working into in the next round, and will be enough room between stitches so that our work will stay flat. So to start the next stitch, we're going to do basically the same thing, except that we're not starting with a chain, we're starting with our stitch. So yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, 4 loops on the hook, pull through the first loop, yarn over, pull through 2, and then we have our first partial stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 1, yarn over, pull through 2. Now we have 2 partial stitches, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 1, yarn over, pull through 2. Now we have 3 partial stitches. Now yarn over and join them by pulling through all of the loops on the hook. Now make a chain 3 and repeat. And into every chain space from the previous round, we will make one of these extended double crochet 3 together stitches, and then we will chain 3. And we'll do that all the way around until we come back to this spot. Okay, I've come to the end of my round. I need to make one last extended double crochet petal here. So again, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 1, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 1, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 1, yarn over, pull through 2. Now I have 3 partial stitches on my hook, yarn over, pull through all the loops on my hook, chain 3, 1, 2, 3, And now I need to slip stitch to finish the round, and I should have 12 petals. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. That's perfect. Those are all made into the chain spaces between the petals of the previous round. Now I just need to slip stitch to close. So again, it can be a little confusing. Do I work into this stitch? No, you worked into this stitch actually. So put your hook through there, pull up a loop, pull through the loop on your hook. Then I am going to slip stitch into the chain space also, so that I end up in the chain space for the next round. But there is my third round of this, which is all petals made up of extended double crochets, 3 together with chain 3 between each all the way around. All right, so now we're going to do the fourth and final round, which turns this circular shape into a hexagon shape. So right here, I'm just going to make a chain 3, 1, 2, 3. This will represent a double crochet. Next, we'll make 2 double crochets into the same chain space. So we do a yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, 4 loops on the hook, pull the first loop through 2, yarn over, pull that loop through the other 2, and now I have 3 double crochet in a row in this chain space. I'm going to chain 1, and into the next chain space I'm going to do the same thing. Make a double crochet, make a second double crochet, and make a third double crochet. We're basically making granny square clusters here, which are 3 double crochets into a chain space, all made right next to each other, no chains, with a chain 1 between them. But now I'm actually going to want to turn a corner, so I'm going to make a chain 2 and then make 1 more of these granny clusters into the same chain space. And that creates the corner of our hexagon. So I'm going to make 1, 2 chains after making this group of 3 double crochet. Then I'm going to make another group of 3 double crochet in the same chain space. So I'm just kind of shoving these stitches over a little so I have more room. And now I'm going to make 3 more double crochet into the same chain space. 1, 2, 3. So this creates our hexagon. It creates this corner. So we went from a round shape to a shape with a corner. Now we're going to chain 1 and make a granny cluster or 3 double crochet into the next chain space, because this is a side of the hexagon. So we only need to do 1 grouping of 3 double crochets into each side, whereas we do 2 grouping of 3 double crochet into the corners. And we basically just do corner, side, corner, side, corner, side, all around into each chain space. So I'm going to do 1 more corner, which would be 3 double crochet, 1, 2, 3, or 1 granny cluster if you like to call these groups of 3 double crochet a granny cluster, chain 2 for the corner, and another group of 3 double crochet into the same chain space. There we go, there's our corner, and then chain 1, and then make 1 grouping of 3 double crochet into the corner, or sorry, into the side, chain space, now our hexagon is forming. You can see that we have 2 corners made. So A hexagon has 6 corners, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and right now we have 2. I am going to start joining now to show you how to join in with existing joined blanket. If you were just joining your first square, or sorry, your first hexagon, you would make the same pattern all the way around and have one complete hexagon, and then you would join with the next one that you make on the 4th round. But I already have mine kind of started, so I'm going to zoom out just a bit, and we can see that this would join right here, but we want to join this corner that I'm about to make to this corner that I've already made. That's how we do a join as you go. You basically form the stitches into the other stitches that are already created instead of making them all as individual units and then sewing them together. This is a little bit tricky at first to get used to, but it's much faster and much easier to do this rather than sew them all together later. I think it's a better method, but you know, to each their own. You could always make a full hexagon and then sew them together if you prefer to do that rather than do a join as you go. There is a bit of texture to this join as you go method because I'm joining in the chain spaces, and then in these spots the top stitches of both sides of both hexagons kind of just butt up to each other. So they aren't joined there, they're just joined in the corner chain, or in the side and corner chain spaces. So they are connected pretty tightly, but they do have this hole here that when the two are next to each other, it creates a tiny bit of a ridge. It's not too bad, it's still pretty flat. But if you didn't want that, then you could just do a sewing method if you wanted it completely flat without this cute, I think it's cool. It's like a little twisted look to it. And I'll show you how to make that. So I'm going to start my next corner by doing 3 double crochet. Oops, I forgot the chain 1. So actually I'm going to do a chain 1 after this side group. Now I'm going to make 3 double crochet into the corner, 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to do a chain 1. Remember, my corners are chain 2. So if I'm joining into this corner, I want to join, basically leave this chain available to join over here, but chain with the second chain into here. So what I'm going to do is I've actually removed my loop from my hook. I'm going to just insert my hook into this chain 2 space in the hexagon that I want to join to. I'm going to grab my loop and pull it through and then kind of tighten it and make a chain. So that's my chain 2. So I did a chain 1 and then I inserted my hook, pulled up that same loop and completed the chain. So now I have 2 chains, but the second chain is made around this chain space of this other hexagon. So now they're linked. So now I'm going to go ahead and just make my second group of 3 double crochet into this chain space to complete the corner of my hexagon as I normally would. So make 3 double crochet into the chain space, the same chain space, because it's a corner, it gets 2 groups of 3. And now, instead of making the chain 1 for this side, I want that chain 1 to join here to the other chain 1 from this hexagon. So before I make it, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to remove my loop from my hook. I'm going to insert my hook into that chain space, pull this loop up. So I have my loop, I've pulled it through the chain 1 space on the corresponding side of the other hexagon. Now I'm going to make that chain 1, just whoop, chain. Now I'm going to yarn over and make my 3 double crochets into the next chain space like I normally would, going around my hexagon. So just make the stitches as normal. It's just when we get to the chains that we have to do the joining. So before I make my chain one, that would be before I make my corner, I'm going to remove the loop, insert my hook into the chain one space here on the other hexagon, put my loop back on my hook, pull it up through that space, and make my chain. That's my chain one between the groups. It's just made around the chain of the other hexagon. Now I make 3 double crochet into the next chain space, and this is a corner chain space, so I will need to join. I want to show you how far we've gotten. So we've joined to this side, except for in the corner we still need to join there, but we joined this corner, this side, this side. Now we just need to join into this corner chain space. So remember when we were here, we did a chain one, then we joined the second chain to this. I want to now use the first chain to join over here. So I haven't made a chain yet. I've only pulled my loop out of my stitch. Now I'm going to insert my hook into the chain two space here on this corner of this hexagon. I'm going to grab that loop, pull it through. Now I'm going to tighten my loop and make my chain one. Now I'm going to remove it again, because instead of continuing along, I need to join to this hexagon too. So for my second chain of my corner, I want to insert my hook into the corner chain space of this hexagon. We've already joined to this hexagon in all the spots that we need to. Now we need to join into the corner of this one. So I'm going to put that loop back on my hook, pull it through the chain space, the corner chain space of the joining hexagon here, and make my chain two. Now I can just continue as normal with 3 more double crochet into the chain space of my current hexagon. There we go. So now we have the corner joined. So I've joined to this side and this corner, and I joined to this corner and that corner in sort of one go. Now I need to just join the side of this hexagon with this hexagon, and then I'm done and I can just do the normal finish. So to do that, I'm going to insert my hook into the chain space of this hexagon on the side of it, pull up my loop, adjust my tension on my loop so it's tight enough, make a chain one, yarn over, and then make 3 double crochet into the chain space here to make my side of my hexagon. That's 2, and that's 3. Then instead of making a chain one, I will make the chain one by making it through this chain space, by pulling the loop through, then making the chain one, then make my, then make 2 groups of double crochet into this corner, 1, so here's one group of 3. Remember, we do 2 groups of 3 into the corner chain spaces. I do want to join on the first chain of this chain 2 corner space to this hexagon. So I'm going to insert my hook, pull up that loop that I had dropped, pull it through and do chain 1 and then chain 2. Then continue my corner by making 3 more double crochets into the same chain space for that second granny square or granny cluster or group of 3 double crochet, however you want to think about it. Now we're just continuing the rest of the hexagon as usual. We're done with all the joining. we have successfully joined this hexagon to this one and this one now. So we just need to finish it off as usual. So to do that, we just do our chain 1 that we do between the groups, and we do a group of 3 double crochet into this side chain space. 1, 2, 3. Oops. A chain 1, and then now all I have left to do is this corner, which again is 2 groups of 3 with a chain 2 between. So 3 double crochet, chain 2, and 3 double crochet. Now all that's left is to chain 1 because we're going between the groups, and then slip stitch. I like to just slip stitch around that first stitch. Now I'm going to pull up a loop because I'm going to cut this off. And now I can just go ahead and darn in this end. And I'm finished with my hexagon, and it is joined into my other 2 hexagons. So that is how we make this hexagon and how we join it as we go into the other, to join it with the other hexagons so that we can make a blanket, a pillow cover, a bag, whatever it is we're making. We can just make it as we go, and we don't have to worry about sewing it together later. I will have the pattern available for this. Like I said, it will be available in my Etsy and Ravelry store. If you would like a downloadable PDF version of it, of course you can just watch this video and watch it over and over if you need a little, to see it a few times to get it. I guess I would want to show you how to finish this. So when I finish off, I use a blunt end tapestry needle, darning needle, or yarn needle, and then I like to go and do needle finishing. So I'm skipping the stitch that is the next one from the one I just made, and I'm going into the stitch that's next to it, and I'm going through both loops and then going back through the loop that this yarn came out of originally, so that I get sort of a continuation of the edge. It just looks like another top of the stitch that I made right over this one by going out of this stitch, through this stitch, back into this stitch, and it created the top of that stitch. And then on the back, I'm just actually, these loops are a little loose, so I'm going to grab them with my yarn, go through them, then kind of go through my work so that I can go further down and hide my yarn in the bottom of the stitches that I've made. I like these little tunnels of stitches to hide my ends. So I can go through there, and then I can skip one and then go back through. So that kind of locks my end in place, and then I can skip one and go back through. And normally that's all I do, but you can also go into a corner space, which has a lot more stitches, if you want to just be a little extra careful and make sure you really hide those ends well. It's nice to go into a corner because they have more stitches to hide the tail. Then again, I'm going to skip one so that it locks in, and then go back through, and then just snip off that tail. And then for the center, same thing. I have my tail coming out of my center. This one, all I need to do is go around through the center a few more times. This is an opportunity to pull that hole in the center tighter if you would like to. I feel like this one's tight enough and matches the other ones of the other hexagons, so I'm simply going to feed my yarn through just to hide it and make it a little more secure. I don't need that tail coming out. I don't want this unraveling at some point. So I'm just gonna go through maybe once or twice with my tail of my yarn, just feeding it through these stitches. Make sure you're going in the same direction so you're not like undoing the magic ring by going the opposite direction from the way the ring started, because then you would actually be undoing it. So just make sure you're going in the same direction as you did for the start. All right, so that's it. And when I do have this with many more added to it, and I have figured out how many I need for my pillow and how I'm going to wrap it around and attach it, then I will come back and do a follow-up video showing how to construct a pillow cover out of these hexagons. But don't be afraid to just make them, to play with them, have fun, practice, and maybe make a blanket. Just make a flat blanket. You could make a circular sort of hexagonal blanket, or you could make a square blanket, but then it'll have just sort of a jagged end on one side and sort of a bumpy end on the bottoms. You can make half hexagons, which solves that issue. You could make a half hexagon square here and a half hexagon square here to finish off your blanket with straight sides if you would like. If you would like me to do a video on that, I can. Just let me know in the comments if you'd like to see how to do that, and I will try to figure it out and show you. Thanks so much for watching my video. I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope you try out this tutorial. If you do make something from one of my tutorials and you post it to Instagram, I hope you will tag me at Pattern and Craft. I love to see your work. I will be back with more tutorials. I just was out with a cold, a pretty bad one for a while, so I'm feeling better. Now I'm going to try to catch up and do more videos of all the things I'm up to. I'm always creating and designing new patterns and trying to figure out new techniques, so I love to share that with you, and I will be back for more of that. Don't forget to subscribe, like the video if you liked it, share it if you think someone else would like it, and I will see you next time. Happy crafting!